Welcome to Mechs on Deck, episode 24. I'm Osiris. This is Chewy. We're here. We are Mechs on Deck, and today we're talking about QMK. But
Kunk.
first, Kumka.
Kunka.
But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Chewy, if you can start us off with the
Starting off, let's change it up. Let's start with Dixie Mech.
ooh.
Dixie Mech today. Dixie Mech, you go to mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. Pick up GMK Dracula. Apparently, I think I saw it had like a record setting, at least for Dixie first day. Awesome looking set, a lot of different kits out there. It's Spooktober, guys. All right. And what better set to run than Dracula? So if you are deciding to buy Dracula, make sure you use the mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. It doesn't get a percentage off or anything, but it does help us continue the stream and the videos, and we definitely appreciate that. Moving on to switchmod.net. You can go to switchmod.net/mechsondeck, get 4% off. Cool little tubes like these. Not tubes, tubs.
Tubs.
Close enough.
One letter off.
One letter off. It's a silent E. And so you can get some lube, some springs. You can get little keister icon or keister caps for some switch testers that you should be getting. All that stuff. And I believe Sandstorm is still going for the next couple days. So I think it'll probably be it'll be the last few days once this goes live on Tuesday. So make sure you check that out.
Yeah, plus I think he's running GMK Alter later this month, I believe.
I haven't.
I know Alter is running soon.
Too many sets. Right
Too
now.
many sets. There's a
like
lot of
9
sets
on each website.
A lot of sets. Last but not least, we have Zap Cables. You can head on over to zapcables.com, get all your custom USB cable needs, as well as any other cables that they have. You can get DIY kits if you want to learn how to make your own. We have a video where John walks us through it. Also, stay tuned to his Discord. The bumper will be coming out soon. I'm not sure if it'll be this month. I think he's trying for this month, but it's coming. So stay tuned to the Discord and make sure to stay in tune with that. But yeah, today we're talking about QMK and how it changed the keyboard game. It's done a lot for us. It's done a lot for
Absolutely.
the growth and the flexibility of keyboards and what they can do, the layouts that they can support. Do I need to ask what is the rock cooking? Give me the little eyebrow there.
Oh, sorry. It's a weird twitch that happens every now and then.
But no,
I think it's because whenever I pull my hair back, if it's too tight, it starts pulling on these muscles.
absolutely.
And so it like makes my head twitch sometimes.
Sometimes you have to tame the mane, and there's some consequences there.
Yep. So also when I raise my eyebrows, my left one always goes just slightly first. So it's just weird. I'm a weird person, sorry.
We spend a lot of money on keyboards, so we're all a little bit weird.
Exactly. But no, yeah. QMK, so QMK quick rundown is basically a way to program your PCB or printed circuit board, which is what switches go into. And it's how it sends the signal of what registers what. So there are dozens and dozens, probably close to hundreds of PCBs by now. And they need to be able to send what you want, and you want to also be able to customize it to get the layout that you want. And so that's what QMK does. Is it's a program that lets you go in and assign whenever you press that key, what that does essentially. So it was created by a guy named or username Jack Humbert. I assume that might be his name. I don't know. There was a program called TMK. That's T is in Troy or Texas. And it just looked to improve it. So what a few people don't know is that TMK is kind of a lot more code based. We're lucky right now that there are configurators out there that lets the people like myself who don't want to dive that far into coding use it kind of more on the fly, but you can really adjust it exactly how you want it. If you do know a good bit about coding, there's lots of guides on how to do it. A quick shout out to Mech, who does lots of stuff for QMK in our community. But yeah, that's kind of the basic rundown. Is there you can learn the learn the coding and make sure that your PCB, if you know exactly what you're doing, you can put them all in bin files and make sure that it's exactly how you want it. Or you can use configurators. And we'll talk more about those here in a little bit.
Yeah, and QMK is, I mean, I feel like at this point it's kind of just like a standard. You know, every PCB fits into either QMK or some other version of the same idea of what QMK achieves. QMK is just, I feel like, the easiest for a lot of people to grasp and then get involved in and building themselves their own files into QMK. They are constantly adding boards too. That's one thing that's super awesome about QMK is that while your board may not be supported when it initially releases, couple weeks, couple months, Mech might throw it in there and and make it to where you could do whatever your heart desires with your board, and use that configurator, which makes it a lot easier rather than like going in adjusting each line of the code and like changing it up. Using a configurator makes it a lot easier. You just click a button and say, I want this to do this now. Save, compile. Okay, works.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just really, it's really great because not everyone, like you said, not everyone in this community is developers. Not everyone knows their way around using different tools. I know I've tried to adjust things outside of configurators, and it is a task for someone who has no idea what they're doing. I've gone in and tried to mess with the lines, and it is.
I've done it once successfully, and it took me like 5 hours, and I still messed up a good chunk. But I was like, I got it to do a few things that I wanted it to do. And I was like, all right, that's a victory. I'm going to bed because it's 3 a.m. and I have work in 4 hours. So
yeah, when I first got my Orange 75, the LEDs were not programmed to light up for the indicator LEDs for like caps lock or anything. And so I had went to go in to that, and I didn't use it is in QMK, and I didn't use like a configurator. I was trying to go in and adjust it in the lines, and I got it to work, but yeah, it definitely took a long time, and I definitely messed up a couple things in the few times that I was like compiling everything and saving it all and applying it to the PCB. There were some times where I messed up some keys and had to go in and fix them. So using QMK, the configurators, is super helpful for that.
yeah, absolutely. So one thing, kind of going to what QMK did for us as a community. Um, so one thing that it really did is um, adding benefits for custom keyboards. So you are no longer there's not like, okay, this is the PCB you have to use, and um, if you don't have these x amount of layouts, then you're not going to be able to design something that's different. The kind of the first thing that I think about is 75% benefit from this so much, because 75% there's such a vast array of how you can um, have everything laid out that you have to make a PCB for it. And so what we see oftentimes is PCBs are done a lot of times before boards, just because they're trying to make sure that the PCB is done working and into QMK, so that it can, when you get your hands on it, you're not stuck with either a default layout or even a non-working PCB in some cases. I've received a board before, or not a board, but a PCB where the PCB wasn't set up properly, just because it was brand new. And after a few days, they finally got it all figured out. But it can be frustrating when you got this board in, you're like, this is awesome, but I'm a split backspace user, and this is a 65% that is standard with standard backspace. So making sure that that's adjustable is huge, because there are some people that especially if it's a PCB, what if it is a split backspace and people don't like that, or people don't even have the key sets that can support that. Some people don't want to have to deal with that. So um, adding this having this ability to customize any PCB as long as it's been ported in properly by one of our awesome community members, who most of those people do it just as in their spare time. I'm sure some of them will do it for a small fee, but that's not their living. But yeah, just being able to customize anything you want now, just be with as long as you have a PCB, being able to go, hey, here's your blank slate, here's your blank canvas, and now you can I've given you a PCB with certain limitations, but I'm not giving you it with all. I mean, you could buy a 96 keyboard and make the whole thing a macro pad if you wanted. So,
Yeah, and with QMK, it made it for PCB designers. They're not having to put as much on the board itself. If you didn't have QMK, in order to change um, certain keys, certain layouts like bottom rows and stuff, that's situations where you might be patching things together, um, extra things that you have to add to a PCB in order to make those connections work and not have um, having that flexibility software side rather than something physical that the user would have to say, oh, I want 7U bottom row versus 6.25. Now I have to bridge these two connectors together.
mhm.
Um, QMK makes it to where you don't have to do that. It's all done digitally. So it's easier for the user, easier for the designers. They're not having to release like instructions on how they do it because each PCB is different, especially depending on the layout you have. 60s are all pretty similar. Things like 75s are pretty different across the board. Some of them have completely different numbers of keys than others. Um, so when you have those larger PCBs that have lots of variance, even on something like an 1800 layout where there's tons of variance in how it's designed, having QMK makes it a lot easier for those designers to not have to worry about adding more to the PCB and letting it all happen on the software side.
Mhm. So, and another great thing. So we say, it's great when these boards that are not a standard 60 or a standard 10 keyless board. But what it did for those as well, and especially I would think on the smaller boards like 60 and 65%, is making layers really customizable and helping kind of further the ability to adjust your layers to exactly what you want. So in a 60%, you're obviously missing a lot of keys. Compared to if we're excluding the numpad just to a TKL, that's 87 keys versus 62, and anywhere between 60 and 64. So that's 20 keys that you need to find a way to include um, on your keyboard. So adding these layers and being able to adjust it exactly how you want it. I know, like personally, I do like my caps lock is my function key because QMK allows me to be able to do that. So I'm able to use WASD as my arrow keys, and my number row, which is pretty standard of just going with F keys. But I'm able to do other things. I'm able to have media keys on my second layer, so I can adjust my audio and I can adjust what songs I'm listening to and all that stuff. And I wouldn't be able to do that. You might not even be able to do that on certain boards, even like TKLs that you buy from the store. A lot of times I've used them before, and their function layers get real goofy really fast and are not as user friendly as something like QMK, where you can really make it your own. And this community, and the whole reason most of us are in this keyboard hobby, is to make something your own and make something usable for you. And I think QMK is probably more than anyone, more than any colorway on a key set, more than any design of a board, has made the board be able to be custom to you.
Well, and another thing that QMK has done is by existing completely like, on a software side and rather than a hardware side, it allows you to change things. So if you decide one day, okay, I want my ZXCV to be the media keys, and you realize I don't really like that, I want to move it over. You can do that in
Mm,
QMK. Whereas if you buy like a big box board or something, say it was to happen on the PCB and it was like a bridging connections, it's a lot harder to change that around, um, or you can't even change it around at all.
mm,
You're stuck into what you have, and with the emergence of RGB and LEDs for underglow and switch, the RGB per key LEDs as well, QMK has really opened up the possibilities of changing those around and creating different layers that can adjust those lights for you. I know RGB is a lot of times kind of a meme for the high end keyboard community, but a lot of people love it, and it does have its place. And QMK's done great things for that. You can do some really really cool things with the LEDs on your keys because of things that people have made into QMK.
mm. Yeah, and uh, that kind of really does open up a lot because there are so many different types of LEDs and are so many different types of, there's underglow and then there's in switch, as well. And you can, and there, if you can, I'm sure you've seen it on Reddit. There's some crazy things people do with RGB and coding and all of that. So I mean, you're kind of just limited to almost your imagination at that point. And I guess ability to code because some of those RGB lighting can be a little tricky. It's not, while QMK is great, their standard LED output is not. It's still great. It's still fantastic, but it's not 110%. I will say, I have seen better LED usage on box boards, but they're since it's okay. I'm making it. It's kind of like designing a game for a console versus a PC.
Right.
You're working on one piece of hardware. I had a keyboard I could play freaking Snake on.
Yeah, QMK doesn't have like a direct color wheel that you can like
Yeah,
bring up, press the color, hit apply, and it be
and
there. Or
it's not
it's not gonna go into your Overwatch game like some of the
yeah
razors do, where it will like react to the
change
game.
based off of. So there's some cool stuff, but once again, I will use that for it's designing a video game for a console versus designing a video game for a PC. There's so many more things you have to take in and factor in. But on that note, what they have now, one, I love me at Christmas theme because they have a Christmas theme for whatever reason. Um, but they've got some cool stuff. My wife has a acrylic 5 degree, and I love being able to show her like, hey, you can do this and that, and it's still very adjustable. It's still there's a lot of things you can do with the LEDs, and like Osiris said, LEDs is not really a huge thing in this community, but with the implementation recently of polycarbonate boards and the acrylic tofu and acrylic 5 degree, and a lot of these boards, I mean, we're starting to see people like polycarb, and then people go, some people don't like the LEDs on polycarbs, but if we're seeing more and more of these polycarbs, we're seeing more and more of these ability to add LEDs to them. So that entire aspect of QMK is so nice to have.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It really makes it a lot more flexible, and there is a lot that I think even both of us haven't dove in or dived. I don't know the proper
Dove into.
dove. We have not dove into within QMK of like things you can do. I know there's different ways to do like combinations and stuff and things where you can have one key launches a series of keys. I know Chewy, you've done that in some other configurators. I'm not sure if you've done it in QMK, but um, yeah, it's just really flexible.
It's so much fun. Like I've seen what I love is the people that whenever they hit caps lock, it flashes red. It's like you're on caps lock. Because nothing's more fun than trying to say something nice to your teammate in Overwatch, and then you wind up screaming it at them, and then you just get reported for abusive chat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it makes designers be more free. They can be more creative with their layouts, do custom things. You know, you look at a board like the KBD 75 where it supports the 75% and a 40% plus numpad.
Oh, why?
Which if you've ever seen that PCB,
we need to build ridiculous. We need to build
the 40 plus
the 40%
plus numpad. It's ridiculous, but it's supported, and you can make adjustments to that. Furthermore, in QMK, like if you want to have some weird hybrid of it, you could technically do it in QMK. You could figure it out. You could make it happen. And we have QMK to thank for that.
Yeah, that and like the Satisfaction 75 that has a rotary on it. I'm still waiting to see someone with a slider. I know the Nano, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I should know that since I have one coming.
The Bento Nano pad or whatever.
The Bento Nano, yeah, that has a slider. So like, just giving, a few years ago, people with rotary board, that's strange, and then the Satisfaction 75 came out and people were like, oh, that's great, and now you can kind of customize it. I know most people are probably just going to go, okay, that's a great volume switch to have, but you can have that do a lot of things. Off the top of my head, because I'm talking about it on the spot, I can't really think of anything right this absolute second, but having your volume be right there is awesome. I'm someone that I'm fortunate enough to have a DAC that has a knob on it, and I love being able to just turn it and then boom, audio's gone, or turn it up, or do whatever you need to do. So yeah, just being able to do crazy wacky things with whatever you want to do. What is it? The Grid 600. Mm-hmm. I mean, that board was made for QMK adjustments on everything.
Yeah, it had like flexibility in the top where you could even have one that gave you 3 or 4 more keys that weren't initially supported in the 60%. And then you had other tops that had different LEDs that you could do things with.
Sorry, my light's in the process of falling. It's like, oh, there it goes.
She's about to have a light malfunction.
We're having a great time over here. We out
here. Gets camera fixed. Has lighting issues.
Well, okay, my lighting setup is as ghetto as it gets. So it's literally like command strip to the top of my monitor, but I'll figure it out.
It'll be okay. Just use QMK. You can figure it out.
Exactly. QMK. Perfect.
But no, it really, QMK really makes it to where everything can be a little bit more interesting. You can have something that is completely different. You can have something that is unique to you in a way to where when someone uses your keyboard, they have no idea what the hell's going on. And you can make it like that if you want, like Chewy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm weird.
So, hey.
When people sit down at a 60%, especially someone that's not in the community, I've got, this is dead right now because of the batteries, but I've got a trackball, and people will sit down and then just look at me, and I'm like, okay, hold on, let me grab my other mouse, and what do you need on the keyboard? So
the best is there's like the random people that still use like caps lock for to capitalize letters rather than shift, and they would be screwed on your keyboards.
Yeah, they would have no idea what's even remotely happening. And so, well, I just had the thought. I'm sorry. I'm
sorry, I totally interrupted your thoughts.
No, you're good. It'll come to me. It was something with lighting, I think. Rip. Anyway, moving on. Oh no, that's what it was. locked layers. So that's another thing that's really cool. We've seen in these gamer boards, these kind of, box boards that are uh, definitely like zoning in on the gamer aspect of like something as simple as like locking your Windows key. You can have it set up to where you can permanently, not permanently, but you can change your layer instead of it just being a hold down to change layer. I forget, I'm bad with the technical terms, but you're actually just locking yourself into a different layer. And that can be very useful for something like video games where um, you don't want Windows key on there, or maybe you don't want certain keys to ever actually have to worry about hitting, such as Windows or caps lock, or I don't know why someone would want to take away tab or moving keys away. If you're a 60% user and you're worried about hitting escape, you can move, if you like it, you can move that across the board and have that just be either a dead key or something else. Um, so being able to adjust that to where you don't have to worry, you can completely change your keyboard for a gaming setup and then change it back for like a normal typing setup without having to completely change keyboards. So another great feature.
Absolutely. Now you're making me want to build another layer that is the
Just for
same
gaming.
thing, but the only change is that tilde comes back over to the left side and escape flips to the right side
Yeah.
for CS:GO because
There you
you
go,
need,
because you need that tab, that tilde, sorry.
yeah, get into your console.
Mhm.
But no, and the thing is that configurators make it super easy. Using QMK configurator makes it really easy because it's literally just clicking
Drag and drop.
and dragging. It's like, I want this to do this now. Click. Now it does that. Like apply, and then you compile it and everything, and go through that process, which is really easy, really simple. But um, it's very quick, very easy, and it's really easy to reset it if you do something. Say you want to try something out for a couple weeks. You want to try Chewy's cap lock WASD for arrows. And you're like, I really don't like this. I'm going to go back to using something different. You can easily do that.
Easy. I won't take credit for that. 001 Anthony showed me the way. So, but yeah, the configurator, I mean, it's for the people that are afraid of having to worry about coding. It's seriously one of the easiest things. It's in there now, and now it's like pretty. Now you can have it look like Serica, GMK Serica if you want, or Olivia for these caps that you can't afford. You can at least make it look pretty on the layout. So there's so many different things you can do, and configurator really just blew the door wide open of customizability and just being able to effectively and efficiently put it on your board. QMK Toolbox is something that you would need on that. QMK Toolbox is what you need to flash the actual
JSON file.
JSON files onto the PCB. So that's it's fairly simple. I'm gonna put a link to Mech Merlin's YouTube down below in the description, because he's got all this great stuff. He does so much great work for the community. We'll have him on eventually on our Twitch live show soon. Um, but yeah, he's a great guy, and he does so much. I know there are a lot of others, but he's just kind of the first one that comes to mind. But um, having this online web based program, and then one application that you're able to just flash it on really quick, it makes it super easy. Pro tip: don't finish even your caps. Don't even put your caps on before flashing your keyboard, because there's no worse feeling than putting your board together and realizing that you forgot to put reset on your layer, on your second layer or a different layer. Don't put reset on your first layer. Um, there's a real pro tip, unless you're accidentally in a video game and then you accidentally hit reset. So make it hard to get to, but remember it. But yeah, so because you'll be doing it, especially if it's your first time, you'll probably realize you may have made a slight mistake somewhere. along the road. So you'll be doing it multiple times, but don't stress it. After the first couple times, like you'll understand exactly what you're doing and know, and if there are any issues, you know how to fix it. So yeah, just all these things, like it really is the kind of pinnacle right now of where we are with QMK. So
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing about the website, the QMK website, is that they have done a great job to where if it's something that maybe you don't want to use configurator for or something that you can't, I'm not sure which situations that would be, but it does give you great directions on how to adjust the actual files and what programs you would need in order to adjust those files and then get everything compiled and onto your board. Because sometimes it does, sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you want to dive a little bit deeper, you want to figure it all out and see where everything's at. But they do give you great direction there, how to get in and adjust those actual lines of code. And one thing QMK has done is that because of QMK, there are certain things that I know people may not like about QMK. Some people don't like the fact that you have to go from a configurator, compile, get your JSON file, put it into a different program, QMK toolbox, apply it there. It's brought on programs that do everything in one, like VIA,
mhm.
where it's just kind of you drag drop and it's already there.
Live flashing.
Live flashing.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, my apologies. VIA is this is something where it's kind of like competition breeds innovation. We've been saying that for a while. Where um, now that we have the kind of tools that we can even improve upon it even more. So I don't know all of the people involved with VIA, but I know Olivia is a huge forerunner in making sure that all gets done. I know Rama has put a lot of effort into making sure it is where it needs to be. And yeah, so QMK has kind of birthed us VIA, which while QMK is great, VIA, it can't do everything exactly better at the moment. There are still some things that it's lacking, but at the end of the day, certain they're only a handful of PCBs, and they're a little bit slower on getting PCBs into VIA. But we wouldn't have, the RGB on VIA is to me infinitely better than QMK because you can do live adjusts and there is a color wheel, so it's closer to these kind of big box RGB installations. And then on top of that, yeah, it's live flashing is there's nothing more annoying than like, okay, I think I got it. Flash. Okay, I totally didn't get it that time. So
yeah, like you accidentally, like that's the thing in QMK, and I've done this before, where you accidentally drag something to the wrong key and then you just like shift it over, and then now all of a sudden the accidental key you missed does nothing, and you're like, no, I need that to do the thing that it was doing before. So then you have to go through the whole process again. Whereas live flashing makes it to where any adjustments you want to make can happen right then and be done. You're not having to worry about downloading multiple things. It's just all there. It's live. Um, it looks nice. It looks really cool. I know QMK's done a lot in the way that the actual program looks over the past couple of years, but VIA has come out and is a very clean looking tool.
it's very futury. It's very like aesthetically pleasing and it's what it's trying to do. So
Yeah, I think it. Saying this without talking to Wilba, Olivia, or
yeah.
Rama, but I think that their goal was to try to make something that was in between um, what you can get out of QMK as far as the functionality and the possibilities, and provide the aesthetic and the polish of what you would get out of something from like your from like your Corsairs, and I almost said Rama, but from your Corsairs and your Cooler Master big box keyboard brands, because at the end of the day, those are super polished. Those driver programs are, they spend a lot of money on and
Mhm.
super polished. We don't have that. We don't have a giant company that has all this money to pour into these programs. And so it's crazy to see the community creating these things like VIA and what they've done with QMK. It's just,
Mhm.
it's crazy to see.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I guess my final thought is just the how you can customize your layers and how you can truly make a keyboard your own has been one of the coolest parts, I think, personally, about keyboards is taking making the user experience so custom fit to you that it really does make you feel like, okay, this isn't a board that I bought that I have to get used to. I'm going to make it exactly what I want. And when I explain to some people like, oh, why buy a custom board, or and that's the big one, how can you use a keyboard that small with a 60%? I go, oh, well, it's custom fit to do everything I need it to do. And outside of maybe typing numbers as fast, just because I don't have a numpad, um, being able, I can do pretty much everything other people can do at a normal speed. I am by no means a typist. I am not someone who can work extremely fast. Yes, it would be great to have an F-row, if I need that stuff, but I can do everything at a reasonable amount of time, and it's very custom to me. I don't have to, I'm not, we've talked about when designing a keyboard, people go, oh, we want to make sure we encompass as many people as possible, and there's those boards that you know Swiss cheese PCBs to make sure that they can go for every single layout possible, and plates that are basically open so that they can accompany every single layout as possible. Where when it's in your hands and you have the ability to edit, it doesn't you don't have to worry about anybody else because you're making a personal keyboard for yourself. And so doing what you want for what works for you is what this is about. So
Yeah, exactly. It's like the biggest thing when you switch from full size down to, we'll go all the way down 60%. The biggest thing is always, well, I'm losing all these keys. QMK makes it to where you don't really lose the keys that you need. You just be able you're able to create exactly the layers that you need to get to the keys that you need. So if you need print screen, if you need end home, all those random keys that aren't in the main cluster, aren't in the standard 60, you can make that happen in QMK, and you can go in and change it around if there's something that you don't want. You realize, oh, I don't need all these keys. You can go and you can take it out. You can change it up. You can do things with media. You can do all different stuff. You can really make it your own and figure out exactly what you like. Maybe you don't like caps lock WASD. Maybe you like right
who
shift.
knows?
Maybe you like right shift and some other number of keys. OKL colon. Maybe that's yours. But at the end of the day, you can figure out what makes sense for you and what is comfortable for you. And that's the biggest thing about custom keyboards is what you want and finding something that you like and you enjoy using. And aesthetics a little bit too.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So nobody. Well, okay. Some people may have kicked RGB out of bed for eating crackers, but so. But that I think that kind of wraps up. We do plan eventually to have somebody come in who knows a lot more about QMK. Well, Osiris and I know a good bit, and definitely could walk someone through how to use the configurator, and how to make sure to get from okay, I got my DZ60. What do I do now? I can get you from that to typing on what you exactly how you want. But the far more knowledgeable in QMK people, we will get them on. Here soon, and have them kind of have them learn us a thing or two.
Show us some cool
So
stuff because there
show us
is.
there's so much that I know I don't know about
Right.
QMK that I think would blow my mind, as well as probably open up the doors for some of y'all.
Yeah, if you want to learn some crazy stuff about QMK and see the capabilities, just watch McMerlin when he
Yeah,
does his
he's
stuff because
crazy.
he does things where like it's almost like when is the keyboard going to start getting up and talking to you and having a full conversation because
Pretty much.
he makes it seem like that's possible. But no, we'll definitely get some people on that are a little bit more, um, like experts in coding and in QMK and can go into the complexities of it. We can
Mhm.
we can scratch the surface, as Chewy said, but we're not experts in it. But we do think it really has changed the game because people who don't know how to code, like Chewy and I, can go in and get exactly what we want out of it. So
Mhm.
it really shows that it is a successful program, um, and it is really achieved the goals that it's set out to create. So
Yeah. So, quick couple things. This month, we will be at the Dallas Keyboard Meetup on October 19th. We will both be there, showing off. Hopefully, we should have at least between the two of us 3 new boards. Hopefully, be nice to have 4. Be nice to have 1, honestly.
we'll see.
Well, hopefully we get some cool stuff coming in to show off at that meetup. But yeah, we'll definitely be there. So definitely come say hello. Show us your boards. Talk to us about your boards. Yeah, should be a really fun time. Um, and then yeah, stream tomorrow. We got Tyson from the kind of the Texas. He's big in the Texas keyboard community as well as I believe he is a mod of Nathan Kim's Discord and stuff. So I'm really excited to talk to him and pick his brain. He designer of GMK Ashes as well as really big in the Cerakote community. On top of planning, this will be the first person we've talked to outside of we've talked to Huey before, but picking someone's brain about planning and running a meetup. So
Yeah, I'm really excited to have him on. It's going to be a good time, so be sure to check it out. Twitch.tv/Mechs on deck. Other than that, we thank our sponsors. We'll just run through them real quick. Switchmod.net/Mechs on deck gets you 4% off. Mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. You can go get Dracula. It helps us out if you use it. And then Zap Cables, you can head on over there, pick yourself up a cable, get yourself a desk mat, get yourself some bomb stickers that Chewy's showing right now, and have a good time.
yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe for more. And look at that autofocus. Buy a switch tester.